In times when uncertainty seems to be the only constant, many of us face pressures that make us feel overwhelmed. Whether it's the demands at work, financial worries, or even difficulties in relationships, it's easy to get carried away by anxiety. The reality is that we live in a world full of challenges, and these worries can leave us feeling helpless, as if we are navigating through an endless storm. But amid this turbulence, how can we find peace? How can we stay strong when everything around us seems to be crumbling? In this scenario, the idea that God is in control becomes not just a comfort, but a secure anchor. Even when life seems chaotic, we can remember that there is a greater force that cares for us, guiding us through adversity. Inviting reflection on surrendering these worries is essential. When we learn to trust and let go of the weight we carry, we make space for inner transformation. The question remains, are we willing to set aside the reins and allow something greater than ourselves to guide our path? Today we will explore how this surrender can bring us relief and hope, even in the most difficult moments. Sometimes worries seem to surround us on all sides, and amid this pressure, it's easy to feel anxious. It is in this context that we find a powerful message in the Bible, reminding us of the importance of trust. In Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 to 7, we are instructed not to be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, to let our requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard our hearts and minds. This passage invites us to a transformative practice. Instead of being dominated by anxiety, we can choose to surrender our worries to something greater. When we pray, we are not only expressing our fears, but also creating space for God's peace to enter our lives. This does not mean that problems will magically disappear, but that we will find strength and serenity to face them. Nowadays, many of us deal with uncertainties that can feel overwhelming. The pressure of work, financial obligations, and complicated relationships can leave us in a constant state of anxiety. Reflecting on this, how have you been handling your worries? The surrender that Philippians teaches us is not a passive act, but an active act of faith. It is an invitation to let go of our desire for control and trust that there is a greater purpose, even when we cannot see the way out. Whether it's waking up in the morning or facing an unexpected challenge, we can always turn to this message. When we remember that God is in control, we can free ourselves from the weight we carry. Surrendering is an important step in our spiritual journey, and in doing so we find not only relief, but also a path to true peace amid the chaos that surrounds us. Delivering our worries to God is a fundamental principle that can transform the way we face daily challenges. Trusting in Him does not mean ignoring our problems, but rather recognizing that we do not have to bear them alone. Often, our tendency is to want to control everything, as if we have to solve each situation on our own. But this mindset can lead us to exhaustion and frustration. When we decide to hand over our concerns, we make space for God's peace and wisdom to permeate our lives. Imagine, for example, a difficult decision at work. Sometimes the pressure to always have the right answer can be overwhelming. Instead of succumbing to anxiety, you can pray, asking for guidance. This practice of surrender not only alleviates the emotional burden, but also allows you to see the situation from a new perspective. Rather than being overwhelmed by the fear of making a mistake, you become open to the possibilities that arise, trusting that God is working in your favor. Another example can be found in personal relationships. Often we worry about conflicts or misunderstandings, trying to find solutions on our own. Instead of feeling isolated, you can surrender these worries to God in prayer, seeking wisdom to handle the situation. This surrender can result in more genuine dialogues and the ability to forgive, allowing relationships to strengthen and renew. Handing over our worries is an act of faith that frees us from the burden of anxiety. It is an invitation to live with the certainty that there is a purpose in every challenge, even if we do not understand it immediately. When we do this, we not only find comfort but also begin to see the opportunities that arise amidst difficulties. Thus, surrender becomes a daily practice, a reminder that even in life's storms, we are in the hands of something much greater. The story of Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers, is a powerful example of faith and resilience in times of difficulty. Despite all the adversities he faced, from family betrayal to unjust imprisonment, Joseph never lost hope. He maintained his faith and trust in God, even when life seemed senseless. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, he declares, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." This statement is a testimony that, even in the worst circumstances, God can turn suffering into purpose. What is surprising in this story is how Joseph, even amid pain, was open to listening to and following God's direction. He did not allow himself to be consumed by resentment. Instead, he used his painful experiences as a springboard for his personal and spiritual growth. Many of us in moments of crisis tend to question why things happen, but Joseph teaches us that even when we do not understand, we can trust that a greater plan is at work. This narrative resonates deeply with contemporary challenges. Just like Joseph, we face situations where everything seems out of control. We may feel lost and hopeless. However, Joseph's faith inspires us to believe that even our worst moments can lead to something good. When we surrender our worries to God as Joseph did, we find not only comfort, but also new opportunities for growth and transformation. Therefore, as we look at the story of Joseph, we are reminded that surrender and trust in God are not just passive responses to difficulties, but acts of courage that can lead us to a future full of hope. In times of uncertainty, we may ask ourselves, how am I allowing my faith to guide me just as Joseph did on his journey? We can find inspiration in his resilience and commit to living with the assurance that, even in the storms, God is in control. She has always been a dedicated worker, putting her heart and soul into every project. But suddenly the company faced financial difficulties, and on an ordinary day, she received the news that she was being laid off. Upon hearing those words, she felt a chill in her stomach and a wave of despair wash over her. How will I pay the bills? What if I can't find a new job? She thought, as tears streamed down her face. The feeling of insecurity and helplessness was overwhelming, and anxiety began to take over her mind. In the days that followed, she spent hours reflecting on what had happened. Worries consumed her, but in a moment of clarity, she decided she needed to change her approach. With a heavy heart, she began to pray, surrendering her uncertainties and fears to something greater. "God, I don't know what to do, but I trust that you are in control," she whispered through her tears. That surrender was not easy, but as she opened herself to this new perspective, she began to feel a growing sense of relief. Each day she set aside time to pray and seek new opportunities. Instead of letting anxiety take over, she focused on developing her skills and learning new things. This journey of self-discovery and faith led her to a new professional path she had never imagined. When she finally received a job offer, a smile lit up her face. It was a position that not only challenged her but also filled her with purpose and joy. This experience taught her that, even in the most difficult situations, we can find a way through faith and surrender. The lesson she learned was profound. By letting go of control and trusting, we create space for new opportunities to arise. What seems like a closing is often an open door to something even better, she reflected. This new perspective not only transformed her life, but also helped her inspire others to trust, even when everything seems uncertain. Looking back, she realized that even in the storms, God had been by her side, guiding every step. Now I invite you to take a moment for reflection. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable and take a deep breath. Feel the air coming in and out, and allow each breath to bring a little more calm. Think about the worries that have been weighing on your heart. What are the fears and uncertainties you carry? Now visualize these worries as small stones in your hands. Feel their weight and the pressure they cause. Now imagine surrendering them to something greater. As you open your hands, visualize these stones transforming into light and disappearing. Ask yourself, what happens when I stop trying to control and allow something greater to guide my path? Allow this feeling of lightness to settle in you as you open up to the peace that comes from trust. Remember that, even in chaos, there is a presence that cares for us. Are you allowing yourself to trust in this process? Lord, I come to you at this moment, recognizing my tendency to want to control everything around me. In the midst of life's uncertainties, I often find myself overwhelmed by anxiety, as if I have to solve every challenge on my own. Today, I confess that instead of placing my worries in your hands, I have hesitated to fully trust. Help me to let go of this weight to understand that I am not alone and that surrender is an act of faith that brings me closer to you. I am grateful for your constant presence, even when I do not perceive it. I thank you for each morning that allows me to start anew and for the opportunity to see beyond difficulties. I appreciate the peace that comes from trusting in you, even when everything seems chaotic. May I remember that in every difficult situation, there is a chance for growth and learning. Help me to cultivate a grateful heart, even in adversity, recognizing the blessings that often go unnoticed. I ask you to help me trust more, to surrender with courage. May I place each of my concerns in your hands, the fear of the future, financial insecurities, the relationships that trouble me. Lord, guide my steps and illuminate my path. May I open my heart so that your peace floods my life. Help me to remember that even in the storm, you are in control, and that by surrendering, I can find a greater purpose in each of my struggles. Today I entrust my uncertainties and challenges to you, believing that you will transform them into opportunities for growth and hope. May I live with the assurance that I am not alone and that you are always by my side. Amen. Throughout this video, we explored how surrendering our worries to something greater can provide us relief and hope, even amidst chaos. We learned that, like Joseph, we can find purpose in difficulties, and that trusting in God is not a passive act, but an active choice that frees us from the burden of anxiety. By allowing Him to guide our steps, we find strength and serenity to face life's challenges. Always remember, even in the storms, God is in control. May you live with the assurance that you are not alone in your struggles. May peace and trust reign in your heart. If this video touched your life in any way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave your like and share your experiences in the comments. What was the moment when you felt the peace of surrendering your worries to something greater? Share your story, as it may inspire others to trust and surrender as well.